Have you ever wondered why the same struggles keep showing up in your life no matter how much you cut off? I submit to you that trimming the branches never works. In order to see lasting, effective, life-changing change in your life, you have got to deal with the root. So if you're new to the channel, my name is Thaddeus Ford. I'm an artist, a coach, and a heart attack survivor, and I help people to break chains and turn tragedies into triumph. And if you stick around to the end of this episode, I can guarantee you that you will be so much closer to understanding the root cause of so many of the pitfalls that you have experienced in your past, that you may be experiencing currently, and potentially will continue to experience until you deal with the root source of the majority of the issues in your life. And that's what we're going to unpack today in this episode of Break the Chain. There is danger in not dealing with the root. When we only try and trim the dead leaves, withered branches of our life, frustration mounts. And when frustration mounts, that's when anxiety and depression make their grand entrance. And why is that? Because we're repeating these cycles in our life where we see that there's a problem, right? But we're using the same methods over and over again in our life. And that's the definition of insanity, when we're doing the same things, hoping, praying, wishing for a different result. That's just insanity. And so that's what we want to unpack today. The reality is that we are being played like a funky piano by our enemy, because the enemy knows that if you can waste your time trimming the branches, sweeping up the dead leaves, then you're going to be distracted from the actual truth of the matter. And that's what he wants. He wants to keep you busy, distracted from the truth, just pruning away, making tiny little baby steps forward and then 13 steps backwards. The enemy of your life is perfectly content with you making micro steps forward and 12 steps backwards, right? Because the reality is you can prune forever, but until you touch the root, the tree keeps on standing. I'll say that again. You can prune ad nauseum forever in the day, but until you deal with the root, that tree is going to keep standing. And you don't have to be a botanist. You don't have to study plant life to understand this analogy. But that root cause in your life is there because of a seed planted. And more times than not, that seed was planted in your life when you were a child. Because when we're a child, we're vulnerable. When we're a child, the soil of our hearts is malleable. It's just right for whatever we can have and experience in this world. We're so wide open. And the enemy of your soul, the enemy of your life, understands that concept, right? And so he uses opportunities in your life, particularly in your childhood, to make his grand entrance and plant those seeds. And some of those seeds can be, or rather some of those experiences can look like rejection, neglect, abuse, a lack of affirmation, and a host of other things, right? And what happens is, after that seed is planted through some experience of your childhood, then now fruit can grow, right? And so what are the fruits that show up later in our lives, right? Fear, chasing, sabotage, striving, hiding, insecurities. The fruit can show up in so many different ways. And the reality of the matter is that what you're battling today is the fruit of a seed that you never even saw being planted. So we can get to a place where we essentially bulletproof our souls. And that's the goal. How do we protect ourselves from ourselves? How do we protect ourselves from the enemy? And it's not always the enemy, because if you know anything about the enemy of your life, what he does, he plants the seed and he steps back and watches that grow. You are now the gardener. You are now tending this garden full of rotten roots. And your enemy steps back and or moves on to the next victim. When we address that root, we essentially bulletproof our soul. And as we mature in our lives, not necessarily just with age, but there is some truth to age bringing wisdom. But you don't have to wait until you get older to glean this wisdom. You can glean this wisdom if you're 13 or 37 or 97, whatever the case may be. Age does not determine how quickly you can glean this wisdom. The desire to actually crack this code and break this chain, the desire, having a heart to want to live the life that you were created to live, however much life you have left, is what is required. And that's not contingent on age. So maturation is what we're after. And in the same breath, we're not seeking to be perfect, right? So even when you discover the root that is the mother of all roots in your life, the issue, the mother of all issues in your life, it does not mean that your life will be flawless, right? What it does mean is that now, because you understand this root that was, or rather this seed that was planted, that developed into a strong root system in your life, now you can start to see. You can see when those invitations, those ideas, and those goals, what we do, what we don't do, what we think about, what we don't think about, what we pursue, and what we don't, you can now filter them through this knowledge that you are ascertaining. You can filter them through your own process, because once you know the root, you stop taking the bait. I did a podcast episode several weeks ago about the bait. So this all ties into each other. Once you understand the root, the bait no longer is as tempting as it once were. You're not blindsided by the bait. And also, you're not starving to the point where you will nip at any little piece of bunny bread on a hook. And make no mistake about it, understanding the root and dealing with it, resisting the bait, walking in wisdom and knowledge, does not mean that the bullets stop flying around you. They are still being aimed towards you. Your enemy is not going to rest until you are annihilated. And I don't mean that in the literal sense. I mean that in the sense of your enemy is not going to stop until he gets you to stop. Your enemy is not going to stop until he gets you to continue to not trust and walk in faith. Your enemy is not going to stop until he gets you to abort everything that God planted in your spirit. That's his job, to get you to do it. He has no power. What he does is he affects our soul. He affects our mind, our will, our emotions, our bodies, our finances. He affects the things that we put so much stock into in this world. So turn the tables on him. Turn the tables on your enemy and understand his tactics. And what he's doing is using that faulty root that you have deep, deep, deep down in your soul, and using that as the bait to get you to abort the mission. And in our efforts to bulletproof our soul, it doesn't mean, again, that they're not flying all around you. It just means that now they can't penetrate. That's what we mean when we say bulletproof our soul. Nothing gets in here. So I say all of that to say this: stop wasting time trimming the branches. Stop wasting time frantically sweeping dead leaves from around your tree trunk. Take some time to look into what that root is in your life. And I promise you, each and every one of us has that root, a root. Each and every one of us has an experience in our life, particularly in our childhood, that was and is the catalyst for so many of the decisions we've made and or not made in our life, particularly if you're into adulthood. Get to a place where you can name that root. Get to a place where you are able to identify what this thing is and call it by its name. Call it by its name. I feel unloved. I feel unworthy. I am angry. I feel lonely. I am afraid. Whatever that thing is, call it by its name and you render it powerless. Whatever you expose is weakened. It is strengthened. It is made whole by your inability to identify it, call it by its name. Flip the light switch on. And when you identify that thing, you are now in a position to change your story. You are now in a position to effectively change the narrative of your life now moving forward. And it doesn't matter what stage you're in. It doesn't matter what age you are. Start today. None of us are promised tomorrow, the newborn nor the geriatric. None of us are promised tomorrow. So don't waste any more time lamenting over the poor decisions you've made in the past. A new day starts today. Weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning. You don't even have to wait till the morning. You can start now. So I hope that this episode has shed some light on the fact that you can break these chains today. You can start anew today. I would love to hear from you. If this episode moved you, if this episode opened some doors for you, reach out to me. If you want some assistance, further assistance with breaking these chains, identifying these roots, reach out to me. That's what I'm here for. Until the next episode, my name is Thaddeus Ford. Let's break those chains.